I actually started quite a while ago in CPAC and came here, probably made my first real political speech, and I enjoyed it so much that I came back for a second one, then a third, then I said, what the hell, let's run for president, right?
This is a portion of our broadcast where we warn the folks watching us on the West Coast where it's 8 p.m. local time. If you have little kiddies around, they're about to hear the president use some foul language. Anyway, that's how President Trump started his freewheeling 2-hour-long speech at the annual gathering of the Conservative Political Action Committee. He actually started with this. Snarky left-leaning Twitter enthusiasts couldn't wait to say that our flag had just experienced a Me Too moment. The speech was his longest ever. It was to a crowd the president deems friendly. This will give you some idea of how it went.
Please get us the emails. Then that fake CNN and others say, he asked Russia to go get the emails. Horrible. Darling, is the wind blowing today? I'd like to watch television, darling. They don't respect us. They think we're stupido. I have one of the great inventions in history. It's called TiVo. And I'm in the White House and I was lonely. I said, let's go to Iraq. $7 trillion and we have to fly in with no lights. The Attorney General says, I'm going to recuse myself. Number one, I'm in love and you're in love. We're all in love together. Yet I see senators that are there for 20 years, white hair. See, I don't have white hair. So I met generals I didn't know. General 1, General 2, General 3. I said, what's your name? Sir, my name is Raisin. What the hell kind of a name? I said, raisin like the fruit. This was now greater than the election of Andrew Jackson. People say that. No, people say it. I'm not saying it. And all of a sudden, they're trying to take you out with bullshit, okay? I'm going to regret this speech.
So there you have it. The speech was also loaded with false claims and outright lies. The Washington Post reports today, and we quote, Trump's performance at CPAC is emblematic of his version of the truth during his presidency, a potent mix of exaggerated numbers, unwarranted boasting, outright falsehoods. His speech helped push March 3rd to his fourth biggest day for false or misleading claims, totaling 104. With us tonight to talk all about it, Phil Rucker, Pulitzer Prize-winning White House bureau chief for The Washington Post, and Laura Barrón-López, national political reporter for Politico. To our guests, welcome to you both. Other than the fact that the president has no white hair, Phil, did any one thing there stand out to you?
Well, Brian, I think it's the totality of that speech, the 2+ hours. It was a tour de force, you know, what some people saw as crazy and unhinged and perhaps a reason to invoke the 25th Amendment. Some of his supporters saw as authentic and raw and, you know, the reason why they've created this cult of personality around Donald Trump. In that audience at CPAC, people were cheering and clapping and standing there, sitting there rapt as he went from one point to another, and was there so long he started to get sweaty.
Laura, a lot of people saw it as an obvious attempt to change the narrative coming off a very bad week for him. Talk about that, and talk about, if you can, how CPAC has changed just in the course of the Trump presidency.
Right. Well, as Phil mentioned, I mean, this was an unwieldy 2-hour-long speech, and Trump gave his voters exactly what they wanted. He gave the red meat to his base. He talked about Hillary Clinton again. He talked about the Electoral College. You know, he also, as we heard, used profanity in his tirade against the Mueller probe. So he was very much feeling in a corner and finally unleashed after we heard Cohen testify last week. And again, you know, this just highlights Trump's takeover of the Republican Party and how Republicans were unfazed by Cohen's testimony and that they were excited to hear from the president when he came to CPAC. And they were unfazed also him coming off of his North Korea summit trip and it being a failure and him being unable to reach a deal there and also at the same time praising the dictator Kim Jong-un.
Phil, the president went further than that. Apparently, talks with North Korea fell apart because of Michael Cohen. So Americans feeling less safe tonight in our nuclear world can blame Michael Cohen. The president actually tweeted about that, Phil, and said, there it is, may have contributed to the walk, meaning we got up and walked out. Never done when a president is overseas. Shame. Your reaction?
Well, first of all, that's a bit of revisionist history about the walk, because minutes after he walked away from the negotiating table with Kim Jong-un, President Trump told the reporters, including me, I was there in Hanoi, that he did so because he couldn't meet the economic sanctions demands that North Korea had for the United States. But, you know, it's not Michael Cohen's fault or the Democratic lawmakers' fault that this summit failed. It failed because there's such a big gulf between the U.S. and North Korea on this issue of denuclearization, and President Trump has not put in the spade work, the diplomatic work, to really lay the foundation for a deal and come to a meeting of the minds. He thought he could jet halfway around the world and sort of sit face to face with Kim Jong-un, and because of the love letters that they've sent back and forth and because of the personal chemistry that they had developed, they could suddenly create a deal. But, you know, international diplomacy doesn't quite work that way.
Laura, were you at all surprised in the coverage of Saturday's speech by the president? Yes, our phones all lit up. I was following Phil Rucker's kind of minute-by-minute account of what had happened. Our phones all blew up with the fact that our president had used a swear word twice in the public domain. But it was kind of, well, he's at it again. There was a notion that he had said a whole lot of things over 2 hours.
Yes, that's right. I mean, again, I think that what Phil said at the top was key, saying that it's the totality of all of this, that it was 2 hours, which I think is one of the longest speeches he's ever given. But again, I mean, this is true to form for Trump, and it really should be no surprise that he was using profanity. We've known that he's been want to do that in his conversations with officials in the White House.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.